They say Hollywood is a small town, and that's even true when it comes to finding film locations. Many historic homes have appeared on the big screen over the course of decades and dozens of different films. Today, we'll be taking a look at some places that might seem awfully familiar if you consider yourself a movie buff. On the surface, the movies Billy Madison and X-Men don't seem to have much in common, but it turns out the characters share a base of operation. In X-Men, it's a base of operations for this team of superheroes, as well as a way to train prospective members who are struggling to deal with their emerging mutant abilities. Then in Billy Madison, well, let's just say that there are a lot more imaginary penguins in that movie. Surprisingly, a school full of mutants and the overindulged and undereducated Billy share the same real-world location in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. This is the luxurious Parkwood Estate, which was used as a family home from 1917 until 1972 before becoming a National Historic Site and frequent filming location. It's also the home Lucy Liu's character Katie Baxter shared with her late partner in the musical Chicago, as well as a backdrop for many other scenes, most of which don't take place anywhere near Ontario. If you're a fan of the Umbrella Academy, you might even recognize it as Klaus's mansion. Now let's ramp up the action by bringing up heavy-hitting films like Die Hard, Speed, and Fight Club. These adrenaline-fueled films happen to share a shooting location with not only each other, but the much more mild-mannered movie Airheads. The building that made its way into all of these films is a 34-story skyscraper called the Fox Plaza, located conveniently in Los Angeles, California. 20th Century Studios has offices on the 34th floor, having moved in after former President Ronald Reagan rented it for years following his presidency. In Die Hard, it's the site of the Nakatomi Plaza, and the vast majority of the movie was filmed right here other than a few Christmas party moments. It had much less screen time in Fight Club, where it's one of the buildings we see collapse during the big finale. A SWAT team sweeps through it in the beginning of Speed, and as for Airheads, it serves as the base for the radio station. You might have already known about Fox Plaza if you're a fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, since Jake Peralta was more than a little bit excited to see it in person. Let's try something a little bit less recognizable this time. James Cameron needed to create the perfect xenomorph nest in Aliens, and you know this legendary director couldn't simply film it in a lot somewhere. That's not how you get a big pile of Academy Awards. He needed an out-of-this-world location on planet Earth, and found it in London's defunct Acton Lane Power Station. It needed a serious makeover to transform into a convincing alien nest, but its natural state was more conducive to the needs of another famous director, Tim Burton. The Acton Lane Power Station is also the site of Axis chemicals from the 1989 movie Batman. This is the place where Jack Napier takes his fateful fall into a vat of chemicals that took his criminal career up several notches by turning him into the Joker. It seems like Hollywood believes diners are where people go to have important conversations, instead of just filling themselves with irresponsible amounts of coffee. We've seen big talks go down in diners in movies like Seven and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Sure, the content of these films are a little bit different, but they share the same location with tons of other films. They take place in LA's Quality Cafe, which stopped serving up anything but prop meals in 2006. Does it look familiar? You might have also seen it in the movie Ghost World, or as the place where Carl Hanratty discovers there's already a very famous and fast person named Barry Allen in Catch Me If You Can.
The Flash.
It's also the eatery in which Summer broke Tom's heart in 500 Days of Summer. The Quality Cafe has appeared in many other movies, but sadly, its time as a film set is over. In 2014, the building was completely redone and transformed into a bar for the Terragram Ballroom. Now, it's a place where troubles can be discussed over a stiff drink instead of a steaming cup of joe. Sometimes locations need to be large enough to accommodate huge crews, tons of characters, and all that bulky camera equipment. Enter the esteemed Hatfield House, located in Hatfield, Hertfordshire, England. This estate was built all the way back in 1611 and is currently home to Robert Gascoigne Cecil, the 7th Marquis of Salisbury, who generously offers visitors the opportunity to tour the grounds and occasionally allows studios to use it as a filming location. In Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, it's the site of Rosings Park, the home of Lady Catherine de Bourgh. It served as Wayne Manor in both Batman and Batman Returns, and was also the set of Get 'Em to the Greek. In Lara Croft Tomb Raider and its sequel, The Cradle of Life, the Hatfield House exterior is used to represent Lara's humble abode. Inside, the house's long gallery was used to film scenes in Sherlock Holmes. It's not surprising that so many directors have settled on this location due to the amazing architecture and the fact that the gardens alone span 42 acres. You could probably film multiple movies here at the same time without the crews running into each other. Let's take a look at one of the most famous and fanciest of film sets in all of Hollywood, the Greystone Mansion. Although it features a formal English garden, this estate is located in Beverly Hills, California. It was built in 1928 and was later purchased by the city and turned into a public park in 1971. Not only is it a popular film location, but many projects have made lasting changes to the Greystone Mansion. When There Will Be Blood was filmed there, a 2-lane bowling alley was added to accommodate the needs of the movie. This has been the site of well over 50 films at this point. It's the home of both the Big Lebowski and an even bigger and more powerful character, Kermit the Frog and the Muppets. It's the perfect place to set up rich characters like Norman Osborn from the Spider-Man franchise, or represent a stately school like in Austin Powers in Goldmember. You can even see it in sci-fi films like Star Trek Into Darkness and, however you want to describe the famous David Lynch movie, Eraserhead. Next time you watch something, keep your eyes peeled for that distinctive tile floor and the wooden walls. Many of these locations have been carefully constructed by human hands, but now let's look at a more natural setting. The Vasquez Rocks rival the Greystone Manor in terms of number of films shot here, even though it doesn't exactly have its own bowling alley. These rock formations are found in LA's Sierra Pelona Mountains, and the distinctive shape looks kind of like Pride Rock after Scar takes over. This seismic uplift and the surrounding areas have been featured in films like Blazing Saddles and John Carter. You might even notice some familiar scenery in the cult classic Army of Darkness. When characters head away from civilized society, they often end up at the Vasquez Rocks, which we've seen in Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It's also where they dug into the appropriately named movie holes, and if you've ever wanted to visit the site of this classic film, well, you're in luck. The park is open to the public, and guests can enjoy hiking, rock climbing, and showing off their best Ash impressions. Going to high school isn't always fun, and it's almost always less fun than watching movies about high school. When fictional kids head to class, they often walk the halls of John Marshall High School in Los Angeles. It's a real school with some famous alumni, including Leonardo DiCaprio and will.i.am. You might recognize it from the classic movie Grease, in which the cast spend more time singing than pretending to learn. It's also been in movies like Bachelor Party and Pretty in Pink starring Molly Ringwald. It's safe to say that some fictional teens have had better times here than others, since Nancy Thompson was terrorized here during A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's right, not only did the Pink Ladies and the T-Birds go here, but so did the horror movie monster Freddy Krueger. And now that I think about it, that's a crossover that I really want to see. I've mentioned many classic films, but now we're going to look at a time-honored location, the Bradbury Building. This is the oldest landmarked location in all of LA, and was built all the way back in 1893. It's used as an office building, but because of its distinct style, it's been used in many movies over the course of decades, dating all the way back to 1944's The White Cliffs of Dover. The final cost of the building was $500,000, which doesn't sound too bad until you realize the budget was only $175,000. Whoops. But Hollywood has got its money worth out of it since then. You might recognize it from more recent films like 500 Days of Summer, where you can see more of the building's unique architecture. If you prefer action movies to rom-coms, there's a good chance you've caught sight of the Bradbury Building before in films like Blade Runner and Lethal Weapon 4. It's also a prominent part of the 2011 French black and white film, The Artist. In the early 2000s, parody movies were big, with low-budget, high-grossing films like the Scary Movie franchise. Some might argue that this genre went way too far instead of quitting while it was ahead, but here's some evidence that the crews of these productions were doing something right. Scary Movie 4 spoofed horror films like The Village, The Grudge, and Saw, in addition to providing viewers with an assortment of pop culture references and special guests. During one scene, Dr. Phil and Shaquille O'Neal are chained to pipes in a bathroom, slowly filling with nerve gas, and need to make a tough decision in order to escape. This was a nod to the first film in the Saw franchise, and apparently the attention to detail in this funny scene was spot on. Later, when they were working on Saw 3, the filmmakers needed to recreate the iconic bathroom set from the first movie. Instead of starting over, they simply borrowed the fake powder room from Scary Movie 4. Hopefully this list inspires you to take a closer look at the set pieces of your favorite films. Are there any frequent filming locations that we missed that you keep seeing? Head down to the comments section and fill us in. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button and turn on your notifications for more new videos from us here at ScreenRant. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.